Daewon Kim stepped off the transport shuttle and stared at the massive station floating in space. The Galactic Xenobiology Institute was bigger than anything he had ever seen. It looked like a small city made of metal and glass, spinning slowly above a purple planet. Lights blinked along its surface, and dozens of ships moved in and out like busy insects. He clutched his old backpack tighter. Inside was everything he owned: some clothes, his datapad, a picture of his family back in Seoul, and a small bag of his grandmother's homemade dried seaweed snacks. He knew the snacks probably violated about 15 galactic customs regulations, but he brought them anyway. They reminded him of home. The docking bay was chaos. Creatures of every shape and size moved through the crowd. Some walked on two legs like Daewon. Others floated, crawled, or slithered. A massive being covered in blue fur bumped into him without apologizing. A small crystalline creature that looked like living glass chimed something in a language his translator couldn't process. Daewon had studied for 2 years to get here. He had passed every test, learned 3 galactic languages, and memorized the customs of 40 different species. But standing here now, surrounded by aliens who had grown up among the stars, he felt very small and very alone. He was the first human student admitted to the Institute in 50 years. The last human who attended had quit after 6 months, saying the coursework was impossible. Daewon understood why. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 20 years ago. Humans were still the new kids, still trying to prove they belonged. A hologram appeared in front of him, making him jump. It was a map showing the way to the registration hall. Daewon followed the glowing path through corridors that changed temperature and gravity every few meters. His stomach lurched as he walked from Earth-normal gravity into a zone that felt like walking through water. The registration hall was enormous. Hundreds of students waited in lines that curved around the room like snakes. Daewon found the line marked for carbon-based oxygen breathers and waited. The student in front of him had scales that shifted from green to purple. The one behind him looked like a walking tree with too many eyes. When Daewon finally reached the front, a bored-looking clerk with 4 arms processed his paperwork. She barely glanced at him as she scanned his credentials and handed him a data chip. Dormitory assignment, class schedule, and meal credits, she said in perfect but flat galactic standard. Next. His dormitory was in the human-compatible section, which meant Earth-normal temperature, pressure, and gravity. His room was small but clean. A bed, a desk, a small bathroom, and a window showing the stars. Daewon unpacked slowly, trying not to think about how far from home he was. Classes started the next morning. The first one was Introduction to Galactic Toxicology, taught by Professor Velthar. Daewon arrived early and took a seat in the back. The lecture hall was designed for multiple species, with different types of seats and atmospheric controls for each section. Daewon sat in a human-style chair that felt strange after months of preparation. Professor Velthar entered, and the room went quiet. She was a silicate, one of the crystalline species. Her body refracted light in rainbow patterns as she moved. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere at once, resonating through the walls themselves. "Welcome to toxicology," she said. "This course will teach you about the poisons, venoms, and toxins that exist throughout the galaxy. By the end of the year, you will be able to identify lethal substances from 1,000 worlds. 30% of you will fail. This is expected and accepted." Daewon swallowed hard. 30% seemed like a lot. The lecture began. Professor Velthar displayed images of various toxins and explained their chemical structures. Daewon recognized nothing. The poisons came from worlds with different chemistry than Earth. Some were crystalline structures that could only exist in extreme cold. Others were gaseous compounds that formed in methane atmospheres. One was a living toxin, a microscopic creature that produced acid strong enough to melt steel. During the break, Daewon overheard 2 students talking. One was a saurian named Krax, a tall reptilian with sharp teeth and sharper eyes. The other was a student Daewon didn't recognize. "I heard they let a human in this year," Krax said, laughing. "Can you believe it? From Earth, that soft little paradise world. What could a human possibly know about survival? Humans are weak," the other student agreed. "Their world has no real predators. No extreme environments. They probably think a houseplant is dangerous." Daewon felt his face grow hot, but he said nothing. He just went back to his seat and tried to focus on the lecture. The weeks passed in a blur of studying. Daewon spent every free moment in the library, reading about toxins he had never imagined. He learned about the crystalline nerve poisons of the silicate predators, toxins so precise they could kill one cell at a time. He studied the gaseous death clouds of gloom, a planet where the air itself could dissolve flesh. He memorized the paralytic venoms of aquarian hunters, creatures that lived in oceans of liquid methane. It was overwhelming. Every other species seemed to have natural instincts about danger. They understood toxins in ways Daewon didn't. Their evolution had taught them about poison before they could walk. One night, exhausted and discouraged, Daewon called his friend Hana. She worked at the Earth Embassy on the planet below. Her face appeared on his screen, smiling and familiar. "You look terrible," she said cheerfully. "Thanks," Daewon muttered. "I'm drowning here, Hana. Everyone else just knows this stuff. I'm studying 20 hours a day and I'm still behind." Hana's expression softened. "Remember when we were kids and went hiking in the mountains? You got lost for 6 hours. What does that have to do with anything? You survived. You figured it out. You're smarter than you think, Daewon. Humans didn't get to the stars by being weak. We got here by being clever, by adapting, by refusing to quit." After the call ended, Daewon stared out his window at the stars. Hana was right. Humans were survivors. Maybe he couldn't compete with students who had claws and armor and instincts honed by evolution. But he had something too. He had a human brain, shaped by Earth and all its challenges. He just needed to figure out what that meant. Professor Velthar made an announcement in the next class. "The first-year comprehensive examination will take place in 1 week. It will consist of 1,000 questions covering everything we have studied. This exam determines who continues and who leaves. Prepare yourselves." The room buzzed with nervous energy. Daewon felt his stomach sink. 1,000 questions, 1 week to prepare, and a 30% failure rate. He thought about his grandmother back in Seoul, about his family who had saved for years to help him afford this opportunity. He thought about all the humans who had never gotten the chance to study among the stars. He wasn't going to fail. Whatever it took, he would pass this exam. He would show everyone that humans belonged here, even if he had no idea how he was going to do it. Part 2. The Examination. The examination hall was the largest room Daewon had ever seen. It stretched so far that the opposite wall disappeared into a haze of different atmospheres. Hundreds of environmental pods lined the floor in neat rows, each one customized for a different species. Some glowed with heat. Others released clouds of frost. A few were completely dark, designed for species that saw without light. Daewon found his assigned pod. It was a simple clear bubble with Earth-normal conditions inside. Through the transparent walls, he could see cracks settling into a pod 3 rows over. The Saurian looked confident, almost bored. Daewon envied that confidence. A voice echoed through the hall, speaking simultaneously in every language. "Students, enter your pods. The examination will begin in 5 minutes. You will have 8 hours to complete 1,000 questions. The test is administered directly to your mind by our neutral AI system. Answer honestly and completely. Cheating is impossible and will result in immediate expulsion. Good luck." Daewon stepped into his pod. The door sealed behind him with a soft hiss. A comfortable chair rose from the floor, adjusting itself to his body. He sat down and tried to calm his racing heart. A gentle chime sounded in his head. The AI's voice was neither male nor female, neither warm nor cold. It simply was. "Daewon Kim of Earth, are you ready to begin?" "Yes," he whispered. "Beginning examination now." The first question appeared directly in his mind, bypassing his eyes and ears entirely. It was a strange sensation, like remembering something he had just learned. Question 1. Identify the chemical structure of silicate neural toxin alpha 7. Daewon visualized the structure from his studies. The AI accepted his answer and moved on. Question 2. Calculate the lethal dose of glumian gas compound beta 3 for a carbon-based organism of 80 kilograms. He worked through the math, double-checking his calculations. The AI waited patiently. Question 3. Describe the paralytic mechanism of aquarian venom type 9. The questions continued. Daewon fell into a rhythm, pulling answers from weeks of desperate studying. Some questions were easy. Many were hard. A few were completely beyond him and he had to guess. Hours passed. His head began to ache from the constant mental effort. The AI never got tired, never paused, just kept presenting questions in that same neutral voice. Question 58. List the symptoms of crystalline spore poisoning and oxygen breathing. Species. Question 459. Compare the effectiveness of 3 different antitoxins for saurian bite. Venom. Question 460. Explain why certain toxins are more effective in low-gravity environments. Day One's confidence wavered. He was guessing more than he wanted to admit. His carefully memorized facts were starting to blur together. Was that toxin from Gloom or from Aquarius? Did that venom attack the nervous system or the respiratory system? Question 847. Name one naturally occurring environmental toxin from your homeworld that poses a significant threat to your species. Day One almost laughed. After hundreds of complex questions about alien poisons and exotic venoms, the test was asking him something simple. Just name one toxin from Earth, that was it, one toxin. He started to think of an answer. Maybe cyanide? That was natural, found in certain plants. Or perhaps botulinum toxin. That was produced by bacteria and was incredibly deadly. But something made him pause. The question seemed too simple, too easy. After everything else, why would the test suddenly ask something so basic? He thought about Earth, he thought about home. He thought about his grandmother's kitchen in Seoul, where he had spent so many hours as a child, watching her cook and listening to her stories, and suddenly, he realized something. His grandmother's kitchen was full of toxins. Not just one. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Things she handled every single day without thinking twice. The potatoes in the basket by the door contained solanine, a glycoalkaloid that could cause serious poisoning if the potatoes turned green. His grandmother always cut away the green parts carefully. The cassava root she used for certain dishes had cyanide compounds. She soaked it for hours before cooking, then boiled it thoroughly. Never eat it raw, she had warned him. It will make you very sick. The apple seeds in the fruit bowl contained amygdalin, which the body converted to cyanide. Not enough to kill you from one apple, but his grandmother had told him never to eat the cores. Day One's mind started racing. The question asked for one toxin, but suddenly he couldn't stop thinking of more. The red kidney beans his grandmother dried and stored had lectins that could cause severe poisoning if not cooked properly. She always boiled them hard for at least 10 minutes. Never use a slow cooker, she had said. The temperature isn't high enough. The nutmeg in the spice cabinet could cause hallucinations and organ damage in high doses. The rhubarb stalks were fine to eat, but the leaves contained oxalic acid and were poisonous. The mushrooms his grandmother bought at the market had to be identified carefully. Some varieties that looked almost identical could kill you in hours. Day One stared at the question floating in his mind. Name one toxin, just one, but he couldn't choose just one, because the more he thought about it, the more he realized that Earth wasn't the safe, gentle paradise world everyone thought it was. It was full of things that could kill you. Humans just lived with them so casually that nobody noticed anymore. He made a decision. Maybe it was the wrong decision. Maybe he would fail the exam because of it, but he couldn't bring himself to name just one toxin when there were so many. Day One began typing his answer directly into the mental interface the AI provided. He listed every toxin he could think of from his grandmother's kitchen. Solanine from potatoes, ricin from castor beans that grew in the garden, amygdalin from apple seeds, cherry pits, and apricot kernels, lectins from beans, oxalic acid from rhubarb and spinach, capsaicin from chili peppers, which was technically an irritant toxin, compounds in nutmeg, compounds in bitter almonds, compounds in raw honey that could contain botulinum spores. He kept going. The AI accepted each entry without comment. Cerealins in celery that could cause skin burns in sunlight, glycoalkaloids in tomatoes and eggplants, goitrogens in cabbage and broccoli that affected thyroid function, tannins in tea that could interfere with iron absorption. His grandmother's kitchen expanded in his memory. The market where she shopped. The restaurants where his family ate. The street food vendors he had loved as a child, aflatoxins that could contaminate peanuts and grains, histamine in improperly stored fish, mercury in certain seafood, solanine in peppers, both sweet and hot. Day One realized he was sweating. His head pounded from the mental effort, but he couldn't stop. It was like a dam had broken in his mind. Cyanogenic glycosides in lima beans, phytohemagglutinin in raw beans, hypoglycin in unripe ackee fruit, granotoxins in honey made from rhododendron nectar. 47 toxins. all from his grandmother's kitchen alone. All things humans dealt with every single day. He finished typing and submitted his answer. For a long moment, nothing happened. The AI was completely silent. 3 seconds passed. That might not sound like much, but Day-Wan had been answering questions for hours. The AI never paused. It always moved immediately to the next question. 3 seconds was an eternity. Finally, the AI spoke. Answer accepted. Proceeding to question 848. Day-Wan felt dizzy with relief and fear. Accepted. But was it right? He had answered the question wrong. It asked for 1, not 47. Would he lose points for not following instructions? The rest of the exam passed in a blur. Day-Wan answered the remaining questions as best he could, but his mind kept drifting back to question 847. To his grandmother's kitchen. To the sudden, overwhelming realization that he had grown up surrounded by poison and never noticed. When the final question ended, the AI spoke one last time. Examination complete. You may exit your pod. The door opened. Day-Wan stumbled out, his legs shaky from sitting for 8 hours. Around him, other students emerged from their pods. Some looked confident. Others looked devastated. Cracks walked past without looking at Day-Wan, his scaled face unreadable. Results would be posted in 2 days. Until then, all Day-Wan could do was wait and worry and wonder if he had just thrown away his entire future by refusing to follow simple instructions. He walked back to his dormitory alone, thinking about Earth, about kitchens, and about all the ways humans lived with death every single day without ever realizing it. Part 3, The Revelation. 2 days felt like 2 years. Day-Wan barely slept. He kept replaying question 847 in his mind, wondering if he had made a terrible mistake. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the list of toxins he had submitted. 47 items. When the test only asked for 1, he tried to distract himself with studying, but he couldn't focus. He tried calling Hannah, but she was in meetings all day. He even tried eating his grandmother's dried seaweed snacks, but they tasted like anxiety and regret. On the morning results were supposed to post, Day-Wan woke up before his alarm. He checked the student portal on his datapad. Nothing yet. He refreshed the page. Still nothing. He got dressed and paced around his small room like a caged animal. Finally, at 0900 station time, his datapad chimed. New message from the Institute Administration. Subject, first-year examination results. Day-One's hands shook as he opened the message. He scrolled past the official letterhead and the formal introduction. His eyes found the important part: he had passed. Ranked 47th out of 600 students. Day-Wan sat down hard on his bed. He had passed. Not just barely, but comfortably. He wasn't in the 30% who failed. Relief washed over him so intensely that his eyes stung with tears. But before he could fully process this, his datapad chimed again. Another message. This one from Professor Velthar's office. Subject, urgent meeting required. His relief evaporated. Urgent meeting. That couldn't be good. They probably wanted to discuss his failure to follow instructions on question 847. Maybe they would give him a warning. Maybe they would reduce his score. The message said to report to the professor's office immediately. Day-Wan changed into clean clothes and tried to prepare himself for whatever was coming. Professor Velthar's office was in the highest tower of the institute. The walls were made of the same crystalline material as her body, and light bounced around the room in dizzying patterns. The professor stood behind her desk, her faceted form shifting through colors as she reviewed multiple screens of data. Student Kim, she said without looking up. Sit. Day-Wan sat in the chair across from her desk. It felt like waiting to be punished. Professor Velthar finally turned her attention to him. Her crystalline face was difficult to read, but there was something in the way the light refracted through her that seemed almost like excitement. Question 847, she said. You were instructed to name 1 toxin from your homeworld. Yes, Professor. I apologize. I know I should have. You listed 47, she interrupted. 47 naturally occurring toxins. From your kitchen. Your kitchen, Student Kim. Day-Wan nodded miserably. I got carried away. I should have just picked one. I wasn't thinking clearly. Irisu, stop apologizing, Professor Velthar said, and there was something in her voice that made Day-Wan fall silent. Do you understand what you did? I answered the question wrong. The professor's crystalline structure did something Day-Wan had never seen before. It rippled like water disturbed by a stone. He realized after a moment that she was laughing. "Wrong?" she said. "Student Kim, let me show you something." She turned one of her screens toward him. It displayed a chart with species names and numbers. "This is comparative data from all first-year students over the past century," she explained. "The average student can identify between 3 and 5 environmental toxins from their home world. These are the common poisons that their ancestors learned to avoid through evolution and experience." Daewon stared at the chart. Most species averaged around 4 toxins. "Students from harsh worlds do slightly better," the professor continued. "Species from volcanic planets, ice worlds, or high radiation environments can typically list between 10 and 15 toxins. Their survival depended on recognizing dangers." She pulled up another screen. The previous record was held by a Saurian student 12 years ago. She listed 23 toxins from her entire planet's ecosystem. Her world has active volcanoes, acidic lakes, and carnivorous plants. She was considered exceptional. Professor Velthar's crystalline fingers tapped on her desk. "You listed 47 toxins, Student Kim, from one room. In one building. On one continent of your world." The words hung in the air. Daewon's brain struggled to process what she was saying. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "Neither did I," the professor admitted. "So I began investigating. Earth is classified as a Class C paradise world. Optimal temperature. Abundant water. Rich biodiversity. The official reports describe it as gentle and welcoming." She pulled up Earth's file on her screen. Daewon saw images of green forests, blue oceans, and peaceful meadows. "But you see, Student Kim, I never looked closely at Earth before. Humans joined the council recently. Your world seemed unremarkable. Pleasant, but not particularly interesting from a toxicological standpoint." Professor Velthar began pulling up more data. Species counts, chemical analyses, environmental reports. Earth has over 50,000 species of spiders. "Did you know that?" 50,000, and approximately 48,000 of those species are venomous. Daewon shrugged. "I guess. Spiders are just everywhere. You get used to them." "You get used to them," the professor repeated slowly. "Student Kim, my homeworld has 3 species of venomous creatures, 3, in our entire ecosystem, and we consider ourselves highly adapted survivors." She pulled up more data. "Your planet has hundreds of thousands of toxic plant species. Venomous snakes on every continent except one. Poisonous frogs. Toxic fish. Venomous mammals which are extremely rare in the galaxy. Jellyfish that can kill in minutes. Octopi that carry enough venom to kill multiple humans." The list kept growing on the screen. Daewon had never really thought about it before. These things were just part of Earth. "And then," Professor Velthar said, her voice taking on a strange quality, "there are the plants you deliberately cultivate and eat." She displayed images of common Earth crops. Tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, beans. "These are from the nightshade family," she said. "Nightshade. Student Kim, do you understand that nightshade is the universal galactic standard word for poison? It appears in the name because the plants are inherently toxic, and humans grow them in home gardens. For food? Well, yes," Daewon said, feeling defensive. "But they're safe if you cook them right. And don't eat the wrong parts. Everyone knows that." "Everyone on Earth knows that," Professor Velthar corrected. "Because you have to know it. Because your ancestors who didn't learn which parts of the poison plant were safe to eat didn't survive to have children." She pulled up chemical structures. "These compounds you listed, solanine, ricin, amygdalin. These aren't mild irritants, Student Kim. These are serious toxins. Ricin is used as a weapon on some worlds, and you listed it as something your grandmother had in her garden. Castor beans make nice decorative plants," Daewon said weakly. "Your species decorates with poison," Professor Velthar said. She sounded amazed and horrified in equal measure. She pulled up more files. "I contacted the Galactic Xenobiology Committee, shared your exam answer, requested a full review of Earth's environmental toxicology data." She paused. "They thought I was joking at first." "What happened?" Daewon asked. "They began their own investigation. The results came back this morning." Professor Velthar turned her screen around again. "Earth should not be classified as a Class C paradise world. By objective toxicological standards, it meets the criteria for a Class S survival world." Daewon felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. That can't be right. Class S worlds are places like volcanic hellscapes and frozen wastes. Earth is beautiful, It's comfortable. It's home. Yes, Professor Velthar said gently. And that is precisely what makes your species so remarkable. Earth is objectively hostile by galactic standards. But humans don't perceive it that way. You adapted so completely, so thoroughly that you forgot you were living in danger. She stood and walked to the window. The stars stretched out beyond the glass. Most species avoid the toxic parts of their worlds, she said. They build their cities in safe zones. They create barriers between themselves and danger. But humans, you had no safe zones. Nowhere on Earth is free from toxins, so you learned to live with them. You studied them. You processed them. You turned poisons into food and venoms into medicine. Daewon thought about his grandmother's kitchen, about generations of humans learning what was safe and what wasn't, passing that knowledge down through families. The Galactic Council is being informed, Professor Velthar continued. Your exam answer is being reviewed by toxicologists across the galaxy. You've started something significant, Student Kim. I just answered a question, Daewon said. You revealed a truth, the professor corrected, about your world and your species, about what humans are capable of surviving. Daewon's datapad chimed, a message from Hana. She had seen the news. The council was already talking about it. Earth was suddenly very interesting to a lot of people. What happens now? He asked. Professor Velthar's crystalline face shifted into what might have been a smile. Now everyone wants to know what else humans forgot to mention about the death world they call home. Part 4. The Deep Dive. The arrival of the Galactic Xenobiology Committee caused chaos at the Institute. Ships docked every hour carrying scientists, diplomats, and researchers from across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to know more about Earth, the paradise world that apparently wasn't paradise at all. Daewon watched from his dormitory window as yet another transport arrived. His datapad hadn't stopped buzzing with messages, interview requests, questions from researchers, even a few angry messages from people who thought he was making everything up. The lead investigator for the committee was Director Choi, a human biologist who worked for the Galactic Council. He arrived with his assistant Young-Mi Han and a team of alien scientists who looked at Daewon like he was some kind of dangerous specimen. They requested a formal presentation. Professor Velthar asked Daewon to speak to the committee and explain his exam answer in detail. The presentation was scheduled for the main lecture hall, the one that could hold 1,000 people. Daewon felt sick with nerves. He was just a student. He didn't know anything special. He had just listed things from his grandmother's kitchen. Director Choi met with him the day before the presentation. The director was in his 50s with kind eyes and a calm manner that immediately put Daewon at ease. You're nervous, Director Choi said. It wasn't a question. Terrified, Daewon admitted. I don't know what to say. I'm not an expert. I just answered a test question. And that's exactly why your answer was so powerful, the director said. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You just wrote down the truth. Things you knew from growing up on Earth. Things you probably never even thought were remarkable. They're not remarkable, Daewon protested. They're normal. To you, yes. To us, yes. But to the rest of the galaxy? Director Choi smiled. We're about to change a lot of minds about what humans are and where we come from. Just tell them what you know. The truth is extraordinary enough. The presentation hall filled up an hour before the scheduled start time. Students, professors, and visiting scientists packed every seat. Some species required special accommodations, so the hall looked like a strange patchwork of different environments and atmospheres. Daewon stood backstage, reviewing his notes on a datapad. Young-Mi found him there looking calm and professional in her council uniform. Ready? She asked. No, Daewon said honestly. Good. That means you'll be careful with your words. She smiled. Remember, half of these people don't believe Earth is actually dangerous. The other half are terrified that humans have been hiding something sinister. Show them the truth. We're not hiding anything. We just didn't realize other species couldn't do what we do. The lights dimmed. Professor Velthar stepped onto the stage and introduced Daewon. Her crystalline voice filled the enormous room. Today we will hear from the student whose examination answer has sparked a galactic reevaluation of Earth and humanity. Please welcome Daewon Kim. Daewon walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. He couldn't see most of the audience, which was probably for the best. He took a deep breath and began. Earth is classified as a Class C paradise world, he said. This classification is correct. Earth has optimal temperatures, abundant water, and rich biodiversity. It's a beautiful planet. It's home. I love it. He paused, gathering his courage. But the classification is also completely wrong, because Earth is one of the most toxicologically hostile environments in the known galaxy. We just don't notice because we evolved to survive it. Daewon pulled up images on the screen behind him. His grandmother's kitchen. The place where this all started. This is where I grew up. A normal human home in Seoul. My grandmother cooked here every day. She taught me to cook here. It seemed completely safe and ordinary. He zoomed in on different parts of the image. The potatoes contained solanine, a toxic glycoalkaloid that causes severe poisoning. The beans contain lectins that can damage intestinal walls. The mushrooms have to be identified carefully or they'll kill you in hours. The apple seeds contain cyanide compounds. The cassava root has enough natural cyanide to be fatal if not processed correctly. He watched the alien faces in the audience. Many looked skeptical. Some looked concerned. A few looked horrified. And those are just the obvious ones, Daewon continued. The tomatoes and peppers are nightshades, toxic unless prepared right. The almonds contain cyanogenic glycosides. The nutmeg can cause organ failure. The kidney beans are poisonous raw. Even the honey can contain botulinum spores. Director Choi stood and joined him on stage. What student Kim is describing might sound extreme, but it's completely normal for humans. We grow up learning which parts of plants are safe, how to prepare foods properly, what to avoid. This knowledge is so basic that we teach it to children. Young Mi brought out a tray covered with a cloth. She set it on a table at the center of the stage. We've prepared a demonstration, she said. This is a typical lunch for a human child. The kind of meal a parent might pack for school. She removed the cloth. The alien scientist leaned forward to see. A tomato, Young Mi said, holding up the red fruit. From the nightshade family. The leaves and stems are toxic. Humans eat the fruit. She took a bite. Several aliens made sounds of alarm. Potato chips, she continued, showing a small bag. Made from the toxic tuber of another nightshade plant. Safe only after cooking at high temperature. We give these to children as snacks. She ate a few chips. Someone in the audience actually gasped. Apple slices. Seeds removed because they contain amygdalin, which breaks down into cyanide in the body. We teach children not to eat the cores. Chocolate. Contains theobromine, which is toxic to most earth mammals. Fatal to dogs and cats. Humans eat it daily, sometimes multiple times a day. Coffee. Contains caffeine, which is literally a pesticide that plants produce to poison insects. Humans drink it every morning to wake up. And peanuts. Common allergen that can kill some humans. Also prone to aflatoxin contamination. We still eat them by the handful. She calmly consumed the entire lunch while the audience watched in stunned silence. When she finished, she smiled. This is what I ate yesterday, and the day before, and probably what I'll eat tomorrow. It's completely normal. Daewon took over again. Humans don't have the strongest bodies. We're not the fastest or the best fighters, but we have something else. We have the ability to adapt, to learn, to take a world full of poison and make it home. Professor Velthar stood and addressed the committee. I move that Earth be formally reclassified from a Class C paradise world to a Class S survival world. The objective toxicological data supports this classification. The room erupted into argument. Some scientists agreed immediately. Others protested. How could a paradise world also be a survival world? The classifications were meant to be opposites. Director Choi raised his hand for silence. Earth is comfortable for humans because we adapted to it. But that doesn't change the objective reality. By galactic standards, Earth should be nearly uninhabitable. The fact that humans see it as paradise doesn't make it less dangerous. It makes humans more remarkable. The debate continued for hours. Daewon answered questions as best he could. Yes, humans really did eat all those things. No, they didn't wear protective equipment while cooking. Yes, children learned to handle mild toxins from a young age. Yes, it was completely normal. After the presentation, students from other species approached Daewon with newfound respect. A crystalline student who had ignored him before apologized for underestimating humans. An aquarian asked if it was true that humans could drink water with certain bacteria that would hospitalize other species. Daewon had to explain that no humans got sick too, but they had developed water treatment systems specifically because their water sources were so frequently contaminated. Cracks, the Saurian student who had mocked humans, found Daewon in the cafeteria that evening. Is it really true about the apple seeds? He asked. Yeah, Daewon said. They contain cyanide. but you'd have to chew and eat a lot of them to get sick. Most people just avoid them out of habit, and humans just eat around them. Like it's nothing? Pretty much. We teach kids not to eat the cores. Crack sat down across from Day-Wan. His scales had lost their usual confident sheen. I'm from a volcanic world. My people pride ourselves on being tough. We build our cities near lava flows. We breathe air that would burn most species' lungs. He paused, looking at his clawed hands. But we avoid the toxic zones. We build barriers. We protect ourselves. You humans don't have barriers. You live in the toxic zones. You cultivate them. You turn them into farms, Day-Wan shrugged. We didn't really have a choice. There's nowhere on Earth that isn't a toxic zone by galactic standards, so we learned to work with it. That's terrifying, Crack said quietly, and impressive. Word spread quickly through the Institute and beyond. Earth, the quiet little paradise that no one had paid much attention to, was suddenly the most interesting planet in the galaxy, and humans, the soft species from the easy world, were survivors of an environment that would challenge species from the harshest worlds. 6 months after the exam that changed everything, Day-Wan stood in Professor Velthar's office watching ships arrive and depart from the Institute. The view never got old, but these days many of those ships carried humans, students, researchers, and diplomats who wanted to study at the galaxy's premier xenobiology institution. Enrollment applications from Earth have increased 800%, Professor Velthar said, reviewing data on her screens. We can't accept them all. We simply don't have the facilities. That's good though, right? Day-Wan asked. It means humans are finally being taken seriously. It means humanity's position in the galaxy is changing rapidly. The professor turned from her screens. The Galactic Council's Defense Committee contacted me last week. They want to discuss human involvement in hazardous environment operations. Day-Wan raised his eyebrows. What does that mean? It means they've realized that humans have natural advantages in toxic environments. Your soldiers can operate in places that would poison other species. Your medical personnel understand toxins intuitively in ways that take others decades to learn. You're resistant to accidental exposure in laboratories. She pulled up a formal document. The Council has offered Earth leadership of the Galactic Hazardous Environment Response Teams. Humans would be first responders to toxic spills, contaminated worlds, and biological threats across the galaxy. That's amazing, Day-Wan said. Director Choi accepted on behalf of Earth this morning. With one condition. The Council must formally recognize that humans didn't survive Earth through strength alone, but through intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation. Professor Velthar's crystalline face shifted into what Day-Wan now recognized as her version of a smile. They agreed. Earth's status in the Council has been elevated significantly, all because you answered one exam question honestly. Later that day, Day-Wan attended the first session of a new required course at the Institute. Every first-year student had to take it, regardless of their species or field of study. The course was called Human Survival Biology and Toxicological Adaptation. Professor Velthar taught it. Day-Wan was her teaching assistant, the lecture hall filled with nervous alien students. Day-Wan recognized many of them from his own first-year cohort. They looked at him differently now, not with mockery or dismissal, but with genuine curiosity and respect. Professor Velthar called the class to order. Welcome to Understanding Earth. This course will examine how one species adapted to survive on a world that should, by all objective measures, be nearly uninhabitable. She gestured to Day-Wan. Your teaching assistant will be providing first-hand accounts and demonstrations throughout the semester. Today's introductory lesson covers a human saying that perfectly encapsulates Earth's environmental challenges. Day-Wan stepped forward. The saying is, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. Humans use this to complain about uncomfortable weather. But what most species don't understand is that this comfort complaint would be your survival crisis. He pulled up environmental data on the screen. Humans consider 70% humidity combined with 30-degree temperatures to be merely uncomfortable, annoying, something that makes them sweat and complain. But most galactic species would classify those conditions as jungle survival extremes. A student raised a tentacle. Humans live in those conditions permanently. Billions of humans, Day-Wan confirmed. Major cities exist in tropical zones with constant high heat and humidity. Humans adapted to every climate zone Earth offers, from frozen poles to desert extremes to tropical rainforests. The class spent 2 hours on humidity alone. By the end, the students looked exhausted and slightly traumatized. Next week, Professor Velthar announced, we'll discuss why humans consider predatory wildlife encounters to be minor inconveniences rather than survival situations. Outside the classroom, Krax caught up with Daewon. The Saurian had become a friend over the past months. His mockery had transformed into genuine fascination with human capabilities. I'm writing my thesis on human toxin resistance, Krax said. Specifically how human livers process substances that would overwhelm most species' filtration systems. That sounds complicated, Daewon said. It is, but it's important. Understanding human biology could help us develop better toxin treatments for other species. Your adaptations might save lives across the galaxy. They walked together toward the cafeteria. These days, the human-compatible section was much larger. More human students meant more Earth food options. Daewon had been thrilled to discover they now served Korean dishes. Have you decided what you're doing after graduation? Krax asked. Daewon nodded. Director Choi offered me a position. I'm going back to Earth to help catalog our world's toxicological diversity for the galactic databases. It's going to take years, maybe decades. Nobody's ever done a complete survey before because we never realized it mattered. It matters, Krax said firmly. Earth might be the most toxicologically diverse world in known space. Understanding it could revolutionize xenobiology. Over the next 3 years, Daewon completed his degree with honors. He received job offers from research institutions across the galaxy, but he chose to return to Earth, to his home, to the world that had quietly prepared him for survival in ways he never understood until he left. He worked with Hana, who had become a xenobiologist herself. They traveled across Earth, documenting toxins, venoms, and poisons that humans had lived alongside for millennia without recording in galactic databases. Professor Velthar visited twice a year, always amazed by some new discovery. The day she encountered wild mushrooms in a forest and learned that humans regularly foraged for them, despite hundreds of species being deadly poisonous, she had to sit down and process the information for a full hour. You just look at them and guess? She asked, horrified. We have guidebooks, Daewon explained, and experienced foragers teach beginners. It's a skill you learn. A skill you learn, the professor repeated, to distinguish deadly poison from dinner by looking at it. Director Choi published a paper that became required reading across the galaxy. It was titled Classification Paradox: Why Paradise Worlds Can Also Be Survival Worlds. The paper argued that environmental perception was relative, and that humanity's success on Earth proved that adaptation could make any world habitable. The paper concluded with a line that Daewon particularly liked. Humans didn't conquer the toxins. They made peace with them, and in doing so, they proved that intelligence and adaptability matter more than claws or armor. Youngmi became the first human director of the Galactic Xenobiology Institute. She kept a small tomato plant on her desk in her office, a red fruit hanging from green stems. It reminded her that paradise and poison often grew on the same vine. One afternoon, 5 years after the exam, Daewon received a message from Krax. His friend had graduated and taken a position with the Galactic Council's Environmental Safety Division. He was now one of humanity's strongest advocates in interspecies relations. The message said, "Remember when I called humans the soft species from the easy planet? I want to formally apologize for being the stupidest being in the galaxy. I just recommended your species for leadership of 3 new council safety initiatives. Befriending humans was the smartest survival decision I ever made." Daewon smiled and saved the message. He was standing in his grandmother's kitchen when he read it. She was making kimchi, the same as she had done for decades. The kitchen smelled like garlic, ginger, and chili peppers. Normal, comfortable, home. "Are you staying for dinner?" his grandmother asked in Korean. "Of course," Daewon said. She smiled and continued her work, handling ingredients that could hospitalize most alien species without a second thought. She had never left Earth, never met an alien, never studied xenobiology, but she knew more about practical toxicology than most galactic scientists. That evening, Daewon's family gathered for dinner. His parents, his grandmother, Hana, and her family, they ate food that would terrify alien species. Fermented vegetables, spicy peppers, grilled meat seasoned with toxic plants turned delicious through human cooking methods. They talked and laughed and enjoyed their meal, Nobody mentioned toxins or poisons or survival, because on Earth, among humans, these things weren't survival challenges. They were just dinner. After everyone left, Daewon helped his grandmother clean up. She packed him containers of leftovers to take back to his apartment. "Your alien friends," she said. "They really can't eat this food?" "Most of them can't, Grandma. It would make them very sick." She shook her head, bemused. "And they think we're strange." "We're just cooking." "I know," Daewon said, kissing her cheek. "That's what makes it amazing." He took the shuttle back to his apartment with containers of kimchi, marinated vegetables, and spicy rice cakes. Food made with love, tradition, and ingredients that most of the galaxy classified as hazardous materials. The next morning he returned to his work, cataloging Earth's toxicological diversity. The project would take years, maybe decades, but it was important work. Understanding Earth meant understanding humanity. And understanding humanity meant recognizing that survival came in many forms. The galaxy had spent years underestimating humans because Earth looked like paradise. But Daewon had learned something important through his studies and his experiences. Paradise was relative. What looked gentle from the outside could be deadly up close, and what seemed deadly from the outside could be home. Humans had survived Earth not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being smart enough to adapt, brave enough to experiment, and wise enough to remember what their ancestors learned. They took a world full of poison and made it into paradise through nothing but determination and collective knowledge. The exam had asked for 1 toxin. Daewon had listed 47 from his kitchen alone. That answer had changed how the galaxy saw Earth and humanity. But the real answer, the one that mattered most, was simpler. Humans survived Earth by refusing to give up, by learning from mistakes, by sharing knowledge, and by treating the deadliest environment as simply home. And that, more than any toxin resistance or biological adaptation, was what made humanity remarkable.